Right now, the Trump team is preparing for what could be crucial in-person peace talks with Iran over the weekend. But whether those talks even happen, like most everything else in this conflict, is very, very up in the air right now. Right now, only a handful of ships are passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Bloomberg is reporting that those few ships that are making it through have close ties to Iran. That sent the price of oil back up around $100 a barrel earlier today. And tonight, the president has been using his social media platform again to warn Iran about continuing to keep oil from moving through the strait. Opening the waterway was a key part of the ceasefire agreement, but right now it's hard to even say that any sort of ceasefire is in place. Here's why. Israel is still attacking Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah. Iran says that Lebanon was included in that ceasefire deal, but clearly Israel did not agree to that. After pressure from the international community, including President Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to hold talks with Lebanon. But even after making that announcement, Israel kept launching attacks. And if you are curious how Iran sees things, well, today, the new Ayatollah posted on his social media declaring a clear victory. Meanwhile, here at home, where the focus has been on the Iran war for almost 6 weeks now, First Lady Melania Trump surprised everyone by breaking her silence about the Epstein files. Watch this.
The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. I have never had any knowledge of Epstein abuse of his victims. I was never involved in any capacity. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998.
Weird, right? The First Lady went on to call on Congress to hold hearings where Epstein survivors can share their stories on the congressional record. Like what? President Trump told MS Now that he did not know anything about his wife's statement, and a White House official told us many inside the White House were absolutely caught off guard. All right, we got to get warmed up here and get smarter with the help of our lead-off panel because I have so many questions tonight. Peter Baker is here, Chief White House Correspondent for The New York Times, Dave Weigel, political reporter for Semaphore, and Miles Taylor, former Chief of Staff for the Department of Homeland Security during the first Trump administration. He is also the founder of Defiance.org. Peter, let's start with the big picture. Is the single biggest result of this conflict that everyone now knows just how much leverage Iran has by controlling the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I mean, it was just about 6 weeks ago that the Strait of Hormuz was open and everybody was getting their oil through there and there was no problem. So we're trying to solve a problem that only came up because of the war in the last 6 weeks, right? And it's become one that has managed to grip the world. It's not just oil. It's also things like fertilizer, which are necessary for crops. There are whole, acres and acres and acres of croplands that may be wasted this season if they can't get the right fertilizers. It's things like here in the Washington area, I saw the local water authority says they're taking down the fluoride in our water because they're not getting supplies from the Middle East. It has a lot of ripple effects across the board, economically and otherwise. And I think you're right. A lot of Americans didn't quite realize that. And it doesn't seem like the administration had really anticipated exactly what was going to happen there either.
Though I can't figure out why they didn't. It was completely obvious. If you do X, Y will happen. Miles, the new cover of The Economist is getting a lot of attention. I want to share the headline. Donald Trump is the war's biggest loser. The piece says he has gotten very little, if anything, from Tehran after now almost 6 weeks. What do you think?
Well, remember what he said earlier this week when he notionally agreed to a ceasefire. He said that Iran had presented a workable basis on which to negotiate. Now, we don't know for sure what that workable basis was, but the documents that we do have largely rest on a 10-point plan that the Iranians put out there, which a lot of people, including in President Trump's orbit, have deemed a total strategic failure. That whole list of things does not align with what Donald Trump demanded the Iranians do: give up their nuclear program and reopen the Strait of Hormuz and do it without conditions, and on down the list. Instead, it looks like the Iranians got their wish list. And now additional reporting today makes it seem like there was indeed a scramble in the White House in those last 24 hours before this deal was announced, with Donald Trump seemingly ready to accept anything so that he could just claim victory. But it's looking a lot worse. And I think that's why you've seen in the past 24 hours a lot of backpedaling from this administration, a change in tune, the president trying to create strategic ambiguity again on social media, because they are hearing from their own folks in their own orbit that this feels like it was a failure. And if there's any way to measure that, you can see that Donald Trump, not just the boosters that got him elected, but some of the loudest and most influential voices on MAGA social media are having trouble even posting supportive things about the administration today. Some of them are even debating, just before I logged on tonight, some were debating whether to post about politics at all for the next few days, because it was futile to post about what this administration was doing. So they're having a really tough time, and clearly they're recalibrating going into these negotiations.
Well, everyday Americans, Dave, are facing $4 a gallon when it comes to gas. Diesel is almost at record highs. What are the American voters saying? Because there is not a large voting contingent that called for a war with Iran.
No, very small. Every poll we've seen, no matter how the war has gone, it's in the 30s. It's most Republicans. It's a majority of everyone else who doesn't support the war. What has it done? It has made Trump responsible for the cost of living, which is something the White House was trying to avoid. It was like a lot of presidents this is an unusual second term he has, but taking over from a president who was fairly unpopular, you blame for as long as possible everything going wrong in people's lives on the previous president. They had more reasons. They could say the Green New Deal is the reason that this costs more money. Biden's out of control EPA was the reason this costs more money. The illegal immigration was the reason these products are costing. They had a multiplicity of reasons they could say are making your life cost more, and we're going to fix that. And now it's Iran. Everyone I talk to, voters I talk to, associate all with Iran. They associate Iran with Trump. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No. Peter, Politico is reporting that the oil industry, and this is an industry that has been very, very close to the president, they are now desperately pushing back against the president's peace plan because what it would mean for the street. It is starting to seem like no one except Trump thinks this possible resolution is any kind of win.
Yeah, and the real question is he willing to resume the war because it's looking so bad, or is he trying to find a face-saving way to get out, but to find something he can say amounts to a win, doesn't look, doesn't look like humiliation, doesn't look like it was for nothing. And there are things he can point to. Obviously, they have done enormous damage to the nuclear program. They've taken out at least some of the ballistic missiles. It doesn't sound like they've taken out as many as the president claims, obviously. They've set back Iran as a threat in the region. That's certainly the case, but it's not a case of a regime change. This is just simply a different Khamenei, right? As a younger, harder line, angrier Khamenei now who's in charge, and the IRGC still in charge. And they're going to obviously, be a threat to the region and to Americans as soon as they're able to recover and restore themselves, because they're not turning into a Western-style democracy friendly to America. So it's a real problem for Trump. I think he was happy to be able to call the war off for all the reasons you've talked about, all the domestic consequences that are piling up here. But on the other hand, if it looks like a defeat, does that put pressure on him to resume it at some point down the road when this 2-week pause, I suppose, is supposedly over?